Hi everybody, welcome to another Keyboard World live webinar. I think it's going to be a bit of a quieter one this afternoon, but we had a great session last Saturday with Steve Hubble that was really well received. He did some great stuff on the PA5X. But if you were on that webinar, I did explain that today we're doing something a little bit different. Obviously, I teach a lot of people, and so does Andy. And you need to reach a happy medium, really, between understanding your keyboard, and we will carry on showing you bits and pieces on how to get the best from the keyboard. But you also need to match that with actually doing the bit which the hobby is all about, and that's playing the keyboard. And you need to work at both, to be fair. And the reason we've decided to put this little webinar on today is that I teach at least 3 or 4 people who are now incredibly knowledgeable about their product. If I ask them to do something online, they can do it. The sad thing is, they can't really play. And I say that with quite a heavy heart, really, because I want them to be able to do both. And the playing side of things, obviously, same as learning the knobs and switches on the keyboard, you've just got to practice. You've just got to keep practicing at things. And what Andy and I thought we'd do today is show you a few little exercises which actually, if you take the trouble to do these, I 100% guarantee you will benefit from doing it. My little bit, whether any of you want to make a note of this as we're actually doing it, I don't know. So if you've got the old-fashioned thing called a pen and paper handy, it could well be worthwhile. Oh, thanks for letting me know that the mic's crystal clear. That's always nice to know. And we've got comments on again, which is also good. So look, my little bit revolves around 4 chords, and all I want to do is show you maybe 5 or 6 different ways we could play it, all of which sound totally different, and all of which we can put together and mix and match and do different things. Why would we do it? Well, it's going to improve your finger dexterity. It's going to improve your keyboard geography. And most importantly, it's going to improve your coordination between the right and left hand. Now, what I'm going to show you is not difficult, but that said, if you sit watching it and think, oh, that's dead easy, all I would say is have a go. It's not necessarily as easy as it looks, and I'm sure I'll make mistakes as well. Yeah, Andy's sure I will as well. Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks for that vote of confidence. Okay, so look, my 4 chords. Andy talks about scale chords. These come from the scale of C. So we've got the first chord, which is a C. So let's just play that as a triad. So we've got a C in the bass, just a single note of C in the bass. I've got C, E, and G. In fact, let me put our keyboard on so you can actually see what I'm playing. So there we go. That's our first chord, which is the 1 chord in the scale of C. I'm now going to go to the 5 chord, which is a G. Now, the obvious thing is to drop right down and play it in root position. But what you tend to do when you're putting chord sequences together, you look for, firstly, probably minimum movement between one chord and the next, and you'll often look for what we call an anchor note. So here, that G that's at the top of my C chord fits perfectly in the G chord. So we'll go B, D, and leave the G at the top. Now, you may notice one other thing. I've gone to a B in the bass. Now, that will become obvious why when I do the next chord, because the next chord is A minor, and we can do that with in root position, and that gives us an A bass. So why did we put that B in the bass? Well, C, then we went to B on the bass. It effectively acts as a passing note on our way to the A. So we get that nice whiter shade of pale descending bass going on in there. We could put the G bass in. Gives it a totally different sound, actually. And the final chord is F. Well, we've already got an A and a C, so all we've got to do is move that E up one, and that takes us to the F. So this is your first stage, and this might seem really obvious, but just go through the chords in sequence. So C, G over a B, A minor, and F. Now, those 4 chords, I can probably tell you 200 pop songs that were written just using that same chord sequence. So it's worth knowing anyway. But next thing I would do is try and just put a little bit of rhythm to it. So all we're asking you to do now is this. Some of you might recognise it's the chords from Let It Be by the Beatles. So that's our first stage. We've got our chords, we've got our bass line. Now what I want to do is start making it more interesting. And the first little pattern I'm going to show you, we're using the same inversions, but I'm going to call this the Adele arpeggio. Adele did a great song called Someone Like You, and it has this pattern in it. So what I'm going to do now, same bass line, same chords, but we're just going to run up and down the chords as a sort of arpeggio. Again. And that's our Adele version. So we can go from this to Adele. Now purposely there as well, I played it an octave lower because it gives you a totally different sound and a totally different feel when you play it in a different octave. It's as simple as that. Sounds much prettier and gentler played up there. It's a bit more forceful when you play it an octave lower. Okay, so we've got our rhythm pattern followed by Adele. That's what we'll call it. And then we'll use exactly the same notes again, but we'll call this the classical version. And on this one, instead of running up and down the notes like we did this way, we're going to go from the 1 to the 5 and then alternate between the 3 and the 5. Sorry, I'm thinking about the next bit. Play the wrong chord at the end, but anyway. So we'll put the bass back to that. So we've got C, G, A minor, F. So that's our third variation. I'm going to introduce you to another variation now, and we'll call this the John Lennon. Why is it called the John Lennon? Because imagine the song Imagine. That was well thought out, wasn't it? Think about the song Imagine. And what we do is we take our triad, but we break it down and we rock between the top 2 notes and the bass note. Put the bass back in. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, and I'm going to see if I can do this. What I'm asking you to try to do is to go from one variation to the other, and it needs to be seamless. I've got pupils who can do this, and then there's always a pause while they think about the next one. Oh, that's that one done. Right, let's think. That's not what we want. What we want is it to be absolutely seamless from one to the other. So let's try and go through. Somebody said, you make it look so simple. I'm sweating buckets here trying to get this right. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go through. I know this is a bit tedious, but trust me when I say doing this sort of little exercise, yeah, you're not learning a tune, but it's making you work actually quite hard. And it's making your brain think ahead of yourself, and you're thinking about the coordination. So let's go through them. So we've got our rhythmic chords. To Adele. Classical. John Lennon. There's a relief. But that's what you need to try to do, is to run from one to the other. I'm going to show you one more because this is a little bit of a special one. Again, me and Andy, we go on, and I know you must get fed up with us sometimes. We go on about the ninth or the second, because it's actually the same note. So, yeah, somebody's just actually summed up today. He said it's building blocks for future harder pieces, and that's a perfect. I wish you should be on our webinar. That's a perfect way to describe it. What you're doing is you are creating little building blocks for yourself that you can pull out of the bag whenever you need them. This last little variation, it uses the ninth or the second note. Now, if you're familiar with, say, the music of the Carpenters, you'll know this sort of thing. That famous intro to Close to You. Now, we could do our John Lennon, but with the ninth in as well. Now, to do this, forget what I said about the descending bass. You must do this all in its root position. So we'll do our C. Now down to G in root position. A minor. Can you, well, I hope you can hear the difference between just the basic triad. Let's put the ninth in. And I spread an octave in the left hand. It just sort of elevates it into that, and we keep using that phrase, we're elevating it to a more professional level. So, we've got, is that 5 variations? I think it's 5 variations. So I'm going to try and run from one to the other. And we'll start with our basic rhythmic triads. Then we go into Adele. Then we go into classical. Then we go into John Lennon. And then we go into posh John Lennon. That's what we'll call it. And then we'll finish. So, rhythmic chords. I'm doing 2 bars of each this time to show you. Classical. John Lennon. Posh John Lennon. And there you go. The ultimate goal, and I don't even know whether I can do this, so I'm going to throw myself in the deep end. The ultimate goal is to do those 2-bar phrases, but try and mix and match the different... Yeah, Andy's sweating now, and he's not even doing it. So, just as a very quick example, if I do the Adele, and then the second time I'll try and do the classical one. Do you know, if I could do a lap of honour, I would. That you really have to think. I've been playing 43 years, but I'm having to switch off from doing the webinar and actually concentrate on doing that, because it is just thinking of that coordination. I'm just going to finish my little bit just to expand. I'm going to show you 2 more little tricks here. The first one is, and I've actually already played it, at the end there, when you finish a piece of music, I think we've probably all had a go at doing a nice little arpeggio up on the piano. And yeah, we could finish off, we could finish our piece. And I'm going to play a C chord, and we could just run up the triad of C. And it sounds very nice. But if we put our old friend the 9th back in, then all of a sudden it again elevates it to something really special. So all I'm doing is F, G, and finish on the C. But listen to the difference now with the 9th in. It's much more professional to do that. So that's one thing. And the other thing, and I did this with a pupil the other day, and I thought we'd just pop it in today. When you... I obviously said the wrong thing. Andy's laughing. When you get to the end of a piece of music, even if you don't play by ear, we can all hear, or let's say predict, an ending. So if I played the last few bars of, say, Moon River, I think we can all hear that last chord. You can sort of sense it in your head, can't you, where it's going to go. And that's what I would call the predictable ending. If you want to make people, and even yourself, think, wow, that was better, you need to do something that the ear is not expecting. And a common one that we can do is, instead of going straight to that C chord, we come down 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones, and that will take us to A flat. So we play an A flat chord, then we go to B flat, and then we finish up on our C. And it will give us a totally different ending, and most importantly, an unexpected ending. So... there you go. And combine that with your little run-up with the 9th in, and all of a sudden, you've got something that the professionals will do. Final thing. Let's do our A flat, our B flat. Why just finish, say, just on a C chord? Why don't we try a C major seventh. And if I said to most of you that we'll finish a piece in C but with a B on the melody, you'd say, well, that's not going to work. But actually, it does. So if we get to that end again... Again, it's just thinking a little bit outside the box and doing some different things. So that ending, now again, I'm going to say this, don't do it at the end of every piece because it becomes predictable then and it just becomes commonplace to you. Just bring it out the bag occasionally. I'm really pleased, actually, that guy, well, I presume it was a gentleman, I can't see the comments now, on the webinar said these are building blocks, and what Andy's going to give you, you know, when Andy did the blues thing, some of those blues phrases, they go in your building block compartment, if you like. Your toolbox, yeah, exactly what it is. And you just keep pulling them out the bag as and when you need them. So... somebody said, can I show you some more arpeggios? Look, Andy's going to do something on a similar vein to what I've done. But we will probably put another webinar on at a later date and we'll do some alternative arpeggio patterns and things like that and some different little exercises for you. So by all means, we'll do that. Just before I finish my bit, I just want to say one thing, really. I think the majority of you that are with us are arranger keyboard players. But what's the sound we judge all modern arrangers by? The piano. Don't ask me why, but we judge how good a keyboard is by how good the piano sound is. And the reason the pianos are so good on these things is that it really is important to do some piano work, even though you own an arranger keyboard. Because without doubt, the piano is still the king of instruments. And if you can master some of the piano techniques, it'll make a lot of the playing technique on your arranger keyboard a lot easier. Not the subject of today's webinar, but Eric, any more news on the PA5X update? Not yet, but we're still in June, and they did say they would have some news in June. So fingers crossed. As soon as I know, you will all be informed, I promise. Okay, well, we have somebody with us today who you know very well. He's been sitting very patiently in the background, Andy. And Andy's going to do some more, he's trying to get out the door now, he's going to do some more little coordination and dexterity exercises with you. So if anybody does want, by the way, one of my pupils, let me see if I can just find it on here. Yeah, one of my pupils that I was doing the arpeggios with, he actually produced this little sheet, which is actually, as near as damn it, what I've just done today. If anybody does want a copy of that, drop me an email to paul@keyboardworld.co.uk and I'll pop you a PDF back by return. All right, thanks for watching my bit and thanks for joining us again. And I'll leave you in the very, very capable hands of Andy Carville. There you go, Andy.
Thank you, Paul. That's very kind. Hello, everybody.
It's all yours.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well done, Paul. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Very interesting. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yes. It's quite interesting, actually, how our two little sessions are going to dovetail together. And we're going to talk, well, I'm going to talk, rather, about some similar topics to what Paul did. He's going now. I don't know. He's off. Oh, I'll have a coffee, Paul. That'd be lovely. Thank you very much. Ever the professional. So, yes, the piano. Very interesting listening to Paul because I haven't heard him do all of what he was going to say. But actually, there is several different ways of playing this type of keyboard. And we're all very familiar with playing accompaniment styles, intros and endings and fillings and variations, etc. But these are very powerful instruments, just playing it as a normal instrument that Paul's just been doing. He's been playing this as a piano. And there are quite a number of different instruments on here which require a similar technique if you want to play them as solos. Of course you can play them with an accompaniment style if you want to, but I've just pressed the electric piano button and here's an electric piano hopefully. And I'm just playing that now as a solo electric piano. A guitar. This is just an acoustic guitar. Now, all of those instruments I'm playing in sort of a piano style. In other words, I'm not using the accompaniment patterns at all. There's no accompaniment there. I'm using my left hand. And I want to talk about today how we can use our left hand. Now, he's left me with some buttons and he's gone away now. So I think if I press that one, yes, there we go. We're going to actually have a look at this very simple little variation of Amazing Grace. And I'm just going to show you. He's back now. He's back. Thank you, Paul. That's very kind. What a man. What a man. So we've got Amazing Grace there. Can we also send this as a... Yeah, okay. So as Paul said earlier, if anybody wants this copy of this very simple version of Amazing Grace, just email Paul at Keyboard World and he'll send it off to you. But this is what we call a lead sheet. And it will probably look quite familiar to you because it's what most keyboard music looks like, which is a simple melody. You've got single note melodies and you've got chord symbols. So we've got C and we've got F and we've got C and we've got G, etc. But how do I play that more as a piano rather than as a keyboard? So I could put a waltz rhythm on. It's in 3/4 time. You can probably see that there on the music. How would I play it without an accompaniment style? Now, we've produced a book. Yay! We've produced a book which is about what I call chord notes. Now, Paul has just been talking about chord notes without referring to them as chord notes. And you probably noticed when Paul was playing his chords, he was playing in the right hand there, the chords, and using the notes that go within those chords. So he was doing that sort of, that type of, not that chord progression. Yeah, you were, weren't you? You were doing this, weren't you? I think, were you doing that? Oh, no. I wasn't paying. I was dozing in the corner there, like you are now. But anyway, he's using the notes that go within the chord. So he's using a C, and he was using the G with the B at the bottom. Is that right? And then he was doing an A minor and an F. But the notes he's playing here are just the notes within the chord. And that's what we're going to apply to this basic version of Amazing Grace. We're primarily going to do this, though, with our left hand. And whoever made the comment of building blocks, exactly correct. That's what we're going to do now. So the the first thing to say is you need to change your playing technique slightly to get more into piano style than keyboard style. And mainly that's because of where you play your left hand on the lower keyboard. Okay? Now, you probably play your chords down in this bottom section, and if I play a chord on a piano down this deep, it's going to sound pretty dreadful. It's pretty, well, it's too deep. Simple as that. So I'm going to take the notes of my left hand and I'm going to play them more in the middle here. Okay? Now, there is a natural problem with the piano, and I'm sure you know what it is. When I play a chord, it fades away and it's now gone. So if I play this piece of music in its very basic format, and now by the time I get here, I've got nothing sounding in my left hand. Okay? So we'll address that in just a moment. I just want to talk about a topic that Paul touched on, which was exactly which inversion to play with your left hand. Okay. I'm going to play to begin with in what's called root position. So when I play a C chord, you see the first chord of this piece of music is C. I'm going to play it with the C at the bottom here. And then when I move to F, I am actually going to jump to begin with. And I'm going to jump from the C there to the F there. And then when G crops up later, I'm going to go up to there with the G at the bottom. Oh, could I do that? Which one's that? F? Oh dear. 4, there we go. Okay, yes, good. Thank you, Paul. So I'll do that again. You can see it now better on the keyboard here. So don't play down here. It's too deep. My C chord I'm going to do here, but with the C at the bottom there. So I've got C as my first note. And then F I'm going to move up to there, and G I'm going to move up again to there. And the C is a big jump back down there. Now the reason I'm doing that is because in piano mode, the bottom note that you play is quite important because it is the base of the sound. Well, it's the root of the chord that you're going to play, and you'll see in just a minute we're gonna what's the word? Update this. What word do you use? Modernize. Thank you. Yes, we're going to modernize this and make it sound a lot more interesting than just that. And the bass note will be important. Okay. So, very, very, very basic piano mode. Big jump up to G. Big jump back down to C. F. Now, if you do take this piece of music, this is the first level to practice at. Because Paul made a very important point in his little presentation, and that is to actually keep everything running very smoothly. No gaps. And most of the people that I teach, the natural place, and Paul demonstrated it earlier, the natural place where people pause is when the chord changes, because we're going from C, and then people go, well, here's an F chord coming now, so I've got to think about this. It's going to be here somewhere. I think it's there. Oh, I've got to go back to C now. Oh, hang on a minute. It's there. And that's no good. We need to keep the flow of the music going. So changing those chords smoothly and quickly and accurately is very important. Now, that's all well and good, and it's a basic piano technique. But what's important is getting some movement into your left hand. Okay, we need it to sound a bit more interesting. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is really easy. Instead of just holding the chord down, I'm going to play the chord on every beat. Now, I mentioned earlier, and if I can go back to the music, let's go back to the music. There we go. It's in 3/4 time, so there are 3 beats in a bar. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and again, you've got to be able to change quickly. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, so it's a bit more interesting, but it's not really sounding like a professional sort of piano arrangement at the moment. So we're going to change this pattern slightly, and I'm also going to add an important element in the piano technique, which is the sustain pedal. Now, I'm assuming that all of you will have a sustain pedal at the bottom here. If you haven't got a sustain pedal and you want to play in piano style, get one. Okay, it's quite an important thing for you to have, because what the sustain pedal does, instead of it sounding as soon as I release there, I'm holding the pedal down now and it rings. So immediately just adding that sustain pedal into the performance makes it sound better. However, it still doesn't sound really like a professional sort of piano performance. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of apply the chord note technique that I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to play the first beat of the bar. I'm going to do something rhythmic. Okay, I'm going to do the bass note on the first beat and the other 2 notes on the second and third beat of the bar. So it sounds like this. Now changing chord, wow. So the ability to change the chord smoothly and in time is really important, really important. Suddenly it starts to sound a bit more interesting. More piano-like. Yes, we're heading in the right direction. Now, the other point just to mention here in passing, this is why I'm using root position chords, because when I play that C, I've got the C at the bottom, and it sounds better. When I move to F, I've got the F at the bottom, and G at the bottom on the G chord, and C at the bottom there. Now, you can use inversions. You can always use inversions if you want to. So if you didn't want to move your F chord right up there, you can just move the 2 notes there. I better go back to my. There we go. Okay, so the inversions in root position: C at the bottom, F at the bottom, G at the bottom, C at the bottom. Fine. But if I wanted to use inversions, I'm still going to have C at the bottom there when I play F. And I might have D at the bottom when I play G. Now, to be honest, that's not going to be a disaster, and in some ways is easier because you're not moving your left hand so far. But technically speaking, they're alternate bass notes. They're not wrong bass notes. They're just alternate. It's a little bit like Paul used the B note with his G chord. Yeah. But here, there's not so much logic to just keeping on the C when you play F. But it works. It's okay. So here's D in the bass with a G chord. So it sort of works. I personally prefer the root position chords. You can experiment, try whatever you want to do. But let's just review what we're doing here. Suddenly I'm taking my left hand chords, the C and the F and the C and the G, and I'm making them more interesting. Yeah? I'm elevating, that's the word I was looking for before, elevating the performance by using these different options. Now, another option that we have, if we don't like that, if it sounds a bit too abrupt almost, we can roll the chords using what they call broken chords. Now, Paul was doing this earlier, actually in his right hand, but we're now going to do it with the left hand. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now, we can make that even more interesting if we wanted to, and we're getting a bit adventurous now because I'm going to add another note into my left hand. Instead of playing a 3-note C chord, I'm going to use the C above here as well with my left hand. Now this is getting a bit more difficult now, because the roll isn't on every beat, it's on every half beat. So I'm going 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 3. Go back actually to the other camera and just do a little bit of that again, just so you can see. So all I've done is my C chord, but I'm adding with my thumb the C at the top as well. 1 and 2 and 3 and 2 and 3 and... Yeah? That's starting to sound much more like a piano, isn't it? It's actually getting to sound like a piano. But all we're doing is we're using the lead sheet to give us the notes and the chords, and I'm using some different techniques to make it sound more like a piano. So the last variation, before I start doing some things with my right hand, which we're not going to go into great detail about today, but we're going to add some things in, is to do something which not everybody will be able to do. Okay? So that's point number 1. And don't force yourself to do this if you can't do it. And this is a more advanced piano technique called tenths. Tenths. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to leave this camera here. I'm going to play my C now, and I'm going to go down to the bottom of the keyboard, and I'm going to play my C here. Ooh, what am I doing? Well, all I've done is I've taken a C chord, which we've already established sounds horrible down there. But I've taken the middle note out, and I'm playing the middle note, which is the E, an octave higher up here. Okay? And I'm rolling that. Now, I'm lucky that I can stretch a tenth with my left hand. I can't do it with every note, but I can on white notes. So I can do it with a C chord. And I can do it with an F chord. So there's an F chord, middle note is A, take that out and move it up an octave. G, I'm going to take the middle note out, which is the B, and put it up there. Can you stretch a tenth, Paul? Yeah, okay. Now, if you can't stretch a tenth, don't force your hand to do it, because you'll be straining muscles and doing all sorts of things. But if it is something you can reach, it's a very nice sound, and it's very piano-like in its tone. Now, if you can nearly stretch a tenth, there is a technique that you can try, which is to roll it. But you need to use your sustain pedal to be able to do that properly. Without your sustain pedal, sounds a bit naff, frankly. But if we keep the sustain pedal down, okay, and the rhythm I'm using there is 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3. So it's 2 quavers followed by a minim. 1 and 2, 3. Run up using the 9th, just to finish off with. Okay, so that's starting now to sound like a real piano performance. I hope you agree. Do you agree, Paul? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, good. I've got a sort of nod, half nod there, sort of, which is good. Now, let's go back to that lead sheet there, because the lead sheet is showing us or allowing us to do some more things if we use these chord note ideas. Okay, so we can use the notes of the chords in the right hand, but there is a vital piece of information here. It can only be below where the melody sits. Okay? So the melody is here. F chord's coming out and back to C chord. Right. So I can now pinch the notes of C chord. I'm just going to start again. So I can go F chord. Paul is quite right. I'll put the keyboard on and do that again. So the melody is here, but I've got a C, so I can pinch the notes of C, E, G, C. So this is just a different inversion. Paul was playing this with his right hand when he was on earlier. He was using the chord notes in his right hand. Now, as I did there, you don't have to play every note with a chord note. Maybe that little run needs to be just single notes. But you have these notes under your fingers which you can make use of. Now, let me be very frank with you. This is not a technique that you are going to be able to do like that Far from it. This is long-term learning, practicing, and getting used to all of this. The first thing it does, if you're used to just playing single notes in your right hand, is it totally and utterly changes your fingering, your right hand positions, and the way that you play. It changes everything. But listen to what it does to the performance. So let's go back to the music. There's your lead sheet. Simple single notes written in there. But let's add a tenth with my left hand and some right hand chords with my right hand. Change the camera back to, oh no, that's not the right one. Where is it? 4, there we go, there we go. Wow, suddenly everything's changed. And that's all taken from that simple lead sheet. And let me just do one final thing before I get off and leave it to Mr. Carmen to wrap this up. If we just add in another sound, and I'm going to just add some simple strings in. So I've now got the piano sound with some strings. I'm still playing piano style. I'm not using the accompaniments at all. And suddenly... and some ninths that Paul did earlier. So that was incorporating all the things that we've been talking about and some of Paul's things there. We did the A flat, B flat, C ending and a run up including that ninth note or the second. It's a D in the key of C, running up there. So that's all I'm going to say today, I think. So that you're very welcome. I'm going to hand you back to Paul. Oh, yes, I forgot about my coffee. Yes, I'll leave you to it.
Thanks, Andy. I hope you've enjoyed that today. Just something a little bit different. The fact that we've kept you all on from the word go probably implies that, yeah, you've enjoyed that today. What we would like long term, we are thinking of doing, we're not cancelling out the free webinars, so don't panic, but we are thinking of doing some specialist webinars where we can go into a lot more detail, both with product and with playing, and probably looking at limiting the number of people that are on so that we can interact with people, but just making a nominal charge for a special webinar. So if you want a webinar that will probably last an hour and a half, and we'll do some specific little playing techniques, some riffs that we don't have time to do in the regular webinars. All we would like is for your opinion. Look, they've all disappeared now. All we would like is your opinion as to whether you would support that type of webinar. I mean, I have said this before, and I'm not looking for the sympathy vote here. Obviously, we do all these sort of free of charge. In fact, it costs us some money sometimes to put them on, but we do enjoy doing them. But obviously, with a little bit of support, if we could do some specialist paid for webinars, and they won't be expensive. If we can get 10 or 12 people on as a group that want to know a specific thing in a lot more detail, we're probably looking at £3 or £4 each. That's all just to cover our time, and there's the preparation that you don't see. We've probably spent at least at least 2 or 3 hours preparing the stuff for today's webinar, and then obviously we do the webinar. We do thank you. I don't want that to sound like we don't thank you for supporting us, because there's a few of you that come on every single webinar we do, and that's really appreciated. So let us know. Drop us an email. Just give us your thoughts on how you would like it to progress. But there are some people who are saying, oh, yeah, I want a little bit more detail. Well, we can't do it all for nothing. So give us your opinion, and then we'll plan things accordingly.
How much is the chord book? Is it a chord notes book?
$5.99. Yeah, $5.99. The book that covers a lot of what we've been talking about today. That's on the website as well. So all that remains is for me to thank Andy once again for his contribution and drinking my coffee, as always, and to you for supporting us and watching, and thanks for the comments as we've gone through. And we look forward to seeing you all very soon. We haven't got the next one planned, but it will be at some point next week. So look out on YouTube. You'll see it advertised as soon as we've decided what we're going to do. Okay, thanks ever so much, and bye for now.